everyone. Our period for today targets premises. And I guess this is your first time to hear this term. That's why it needs definition, needs some kind of clarification, some drills. This is what we are trying to do today, inshallah. Actually, premise is how an outcome was decided. How did it get to this point or this decision? It depends on previous procedures, previous actions. So how can you reach this decision? It's how to get a conclusion. Well, actually, the question is not that type. In SAT, the question is not that type of questions that need an answer. It's not just an answer. Look what's behind the question. The target is character building. It's the traits and characteristics and qualities of the character. So it's not just a question that needs an answer. No, you have to think critically. You have to analyze the information. You have to use your higher order thinking skills in order to reach that decision. When you are following this way, so you know that someday in the future, inshallah, you're going to be a leader or a manager of a successful company or project or whatever it is, because you got to learn how to take the correct decision in the correct time. So that's why we are following this way actually in order to develop somehow. Let's move to our presentation for today. Well, about premises. Premises could be obvious, could be stated, or it could be hidden. You have to understand it through reading the context. Let's have a look at that. The laws of nature and plural law are one and the same. Actually, here, human beings can understand the laws of nature. We didn't say them, we didn't say the laws of nature. Human beings must follow the laws of nature. Because the human community is charged with the task of ordering its life according to the same kind of objectives, principles by which the cosmos itself is ordered. Well, the premises actually could be dependent or independent. I mean by dependent premises is that premises need at least one other premise to provide support for a conclusion. So up to now, you got an idea about what is a premises, or you muddled up? I can give you a simplified definition for premise again, if you would like. What do you think? Is it obvious?
No.
Well, my definition here is the premise of how to get a decision. Can I give you an example? Once you have found the conclusion, most often everything else in the argument will be either premise or noise. The premise provides evidence for the conclusion. They form the foundation or infrastructure upon which the conclusion depends. How did you get this conclusion? To determine whether a statement is a premise, ask yourself whether it supports the conclusion. If it supports the conclusion, it's a premise. Earlier, we saw that writers use certain words to flag conclusions. Likewise, writers use certain words to flag premises. Following is a partial list of the most common premise indicators. Well, let's have an example to that. For example, the two couples are on Thursday or Friday, and the two couples are watching TV. And what happens is one of the couples took the decision to watch NBC2 or NBC Action, for example. So why did this? One of the couples took this decision. Well, that's because last Friday, the other couple took a decision to watch, for example, National Geographic. So now the other couple took this decision. Why did he took this decision? Because it's his turn to take a decision. So now we've got an idea about a premise. The premise is, why did this decision was taken like that? We know the background that the other couple took a decision, so it's the turn of the other couple. Simply, this is the premise. Do you understand?
Somehow.
Yes.
Great. You and your friends, for example, are going to take a decision. Now you took the decision to, for example, to watch a football match. Why did you reach this decision? Because it's your turn to take the decision. Yesterday or last week, the others took other decision to watch a movie. So now it's your turn to take the decision. So why did you take this decision? Simply, it's your turn. So that's why this is a premise. Why did you get to this decision? Because it's your turn. Dependent premise need at least one other premise to support or to provide logical support. Independent premise provides some support for an argument's conclusion, whether or not any other premises are present. This is an example. In every free society, which the US intends to be, there must be opposite parties and violent dissensions. Generally, one part must prevail over the others. After society cannot be preserved if the parties do not commit to remaining united, even if they do not prevail. So a durably free American must include both strong dissent and commitment to preserve the Union. Somehow it's still not clear, I know, but step by step. We have indicators for the premises. I mean by indicators, these words you are using a lot with premises, just like what? For example, you've got because, since, if, as, suppose, assume, for, is evidence that, in that, owing to, maybe derived from. These are indicators to the premise. You remember that when we were talking about tenses, we said that, for example, we've got keywords when we see these words, so we know the tense of the sentence. And for example, when we were talking about present simple, so we said if we have these words, so we have present simple. If you have usually, sometimes, we by the often, rarely, scarcely, usually. When we see one of these words in the text, so we know that this is present simple. It is also, when we see these words, we know that we have premise. These words are since, for the reason that, for, in view of, because. This is implied by, in as much as, given that, suppose that, it follows from, due to. So once again, we said that the premise could be stated or not, could be dependent or independent. It could be indicated by leading words or phrases. It may need support or explanation. We are always seeing this in explanatory essays or paragraphs. About the conclusion. How did we reach the conclusion? Simply, we used premises. The conclusion may be stated or not. See that? Religious freedom is the first freedom guaranteed in the Bill of Rights. It was also the single most important reasons why the area settlers in the colony left the safety and relatively comfort of the homes to start new lives here. The bedrock freedom of American civilization will always need to be protected and interpreted for the times. Couple of minutes, I'm going to ask you to write down an essay applying using the premise to reach a conclusion. So please try to focus somehow in order to get all the sides of this topic. Well, we may get a conclusion indicated by some words or some phrases. These are the indicators for the conclusion. Thus, so when you see these words, of course, you know that you are in the conclusion part of the essay. We always use thus, so hence, therefore, accordingly, consequently, it follows that, this suggests that, this proves that, that implies that, this shows that. We always found the premises in the argument. Argument is valid if it's impossible for the premise to be true and the conclusion false. At the same time, otherwise it's invalid. Well, please watch this chart. It's going to make it clear for you. In any of these phases, is the conclusion false? What do you think? Way is the premise could be true. But every way, the premise could be true. The conclusion is true. Yes. Invalid. Very unlikely. Strong. Not so likely. Weak. So what do you think? If your conclusion falls, so what? you've got invalid, you've got weak premise. I know it's not going to be clear unless we write it down. So before we write down an essay, we could get some information. First of all, the definition of the word premise. And after that, the examples. The examples we have. And the last stage, writing down an essay.
So in brief, a premise is like a reason or a cause
Yes.
for choosing something.
Yes, it's a reasonable way of thinking. How could you reach that point or this decision? It's based on what? It's based on a background. You have to know this background to know why did we reach this decision.
Okay.
We are not taking decisions randomly. No, it's not that. We are taking decision based on evidence, based on facts.
And logic.
Okay. Yes, that's right. You see this diagram? This diagram actually is for writing and language part of the SAT exam. It tells us that we've got 44 questions. You have to answer them in 35 minutes. 44 questions in 35 minutes. Well, forget about the part of the convention because this is language. Okay, it talks about grammar mechanism. So this part actually takes the to represent the language part of the this part of the SAT exam. But what we are targeting today is the part on your left, expression of ideas. We have the topic development, we have topic organization, we have effective language use. Here, in this part, it targets the writing career, writing craft. You have to develop your topic. I mean, you have to get main ideas, details to the main ideas. You have to focus in your paragraphs. They should tackle the same topic. I mean, stick to the topic. And the infographics, you may use charts to represent your information. So this is the infographics. It helps you somehow to arrange your ideas and notions. The topic organization, it should be logic in your events or your sentences should be in a logic order. You have to use transition words like, for example, first, then, after that, finally. These transition words are so important to develop or organize your topic. And you have to use effective language. For example, if you are talking about scripted writing, so we should use a lot of adjectives, for example. So you have to use your language effectively. Your diction, your orthography, you have to write down correctly. I mean, in a good spelling. Avoid redundancy. Your style should be clear. So if I read an essay one day and I have no name for the author or the writer of this essay, I know very well that this student could be Kazim, for example, because I know his writing style. How did I know that? His writing style. I know this is Kazim's writing style. So that's why it's something like our fingerprint. It's not repeated. Our fingerprints are not repeated. So the style of writing also is the same. It's not repeated. So when I read and you say to someone, I've read to him once before, I know very well that this is the author, without anyone telling me that this is Kazem or without his signature on the literary work. So keep your style and tune, and try to use varieties of sentences, combining sentences all together. So this is my tips for you in the part of writing. So some more information
Stop.
about premises. Yes.
These tips for writing an essay in the
Well,
chat, or
that's right. Yes, we are teaching you right now how to write an effective essay. Okay, but I
yes.
told you before. Yes, I told you before that there is something behind the curtains. What's behind the curtains is that we are teaching you how to take a decision. How it's important actually taking a correct decision in the right time. So that's why this part of the SAT questions is trying to build your character in order to have a good career in the future, like being a leader or a manager in your major. So that's why it's not just writing an essay, but besides this, we have some steps that is going to take you to higher, reasonable way of thinking. Well, the definition of the word premises, again, it's a previous statement that an argument is based on how an outcome was decided. An example of premise is a couple seeing a movie, chosen by one. Because of what? Maybe somebody's going to say, no, they both should choose the movie they're going to watch. But what happened in here is one of them chose. So why? Why did just one of them? The other opinion is not important? No, it's important. But what happened is they saw a movie chosen by the other last week. That's why it's the turn of the other couple to choose. So right now we've got the simple idea of why this happened, why this decision was taken by just one couple, not both. We knew that the close of that is blah, 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 blah. Once you found the conclusion, most often everything else in the argument will be either premise or noise, because you've got the point. When you've got the point, you don't want this redundancy. You don't want a lot of gossips. You don't want a lot of sayings or people talks here and there. You got it. You got what you're searching for. So everything else around it will be noise, or it's gonna be nothing at all. The premise provides evidence for the conclusion. They form, yeah, what's that? The premise provides evidence for the conclusion. They form the foundation of infrastructure upon which the conclusion depends. To determine whether a statement is a premise, ask yourself whether it supports the conclusion. If so, it's simply this is a premise. Earlier, we saw that writers use certain words to flag conclusions. Likewise, writers use certain words to flag premises. Following is a partial list of the most common premise indicators. I'm going to tell you the indicators. I guess the spirit ended up. Is it?
There are 4 minutes left. 4
yeah,
minutes.
4 minutes. Yeah, great. So the indicators for this. What I mean by indicators? Who can tell me?
Signs or
Keywords.
For example, an indicator
Yeah.
is a thing that like shows you that, for example, the indicator for that heat has acted on water is that it boiled or evaporated. That's an indicator that heat was inside the water. Another
Yes.
example, an indicator that you are sick is, for example, you sneeze, you cough. That's something like an indicator.
Yes. You know what? When I'm telling you, for example, my decision is, or I'm not going to school today. Okay, this is my decision. I took a decision right now. Okay, so why? Well, this is my decision. Why I'm not going to the school today? Because I'm sick. So here I reached the decision, which is I'm not going to school today. What's its background? Why did I take this decision? This is the premise. Because so here, look, the word because is an indicator to our premise. So because, see, you got the idea?
Yes.
So the word because in here,
Yes.
great. So the word because in here is an indicator to our premise. Well, I want one of you to use one of these indicators in a sentence, giving us a decision. Of course, what's behind the curtain here is the premise. So I may
I have
say,
a
for
sentence.
example, yes, good, go ahead.
I cooked food because I was hungry, or I drank medicine since I was sick.
والو
Hello again.
Hi, Mr.
Well, I guess this period ended, so please quit this chat room and let's meet in the other class, okay?
Okay, Mr.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.